I'm not gonna lie, I made this entire video thinking the Griffins had hidden superpowers. But the more I did research, I realized that they're not all that hidden. More like just really random, but I believe some of the more individual ones stem from a single origin point, and in this video, I'm gonna try and explain that point as well as how their powers have progressed over the years. And real quick guys, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're currently at 956, so if you guys could help me reach this goal, it would be greatly appreciated. So up front, the entire family as well as some of the main cast all share a few superpowers, so I'm going to go ahead and get these out of the way, but I don't believe they are real superpowers since everyone seems to have them. Think they're just kind of a natural part of the physiology of the Family Guy world. The powers that are shared by everyone are Toon Force, and for those of you who don't know what Toon Force is, it is a cartoon's power to pretty much do anything and everything. However, in Family Guy, I think it is used for the cutaway gags because pretty much everything and anything basically applies to only things that are funny. Then we've got Broadway Force. Now apparently this is the same as Toon Force, except specifically targeted at causing everyone around you to break out into a well choreographed song. And a good example of this is actually the Bag of Weed song from season 7, episode 12, 420. Then everyone seems to have above average strength, so not super strength, but stronger than it actually should be. Then we've got martial arts experience, like how Lois has a black belt in taijutsu in season 3, episode 7, Lethal Weapons, or Meg and Chris taking on an entire cafeteria full of teens in season 6, episode 6, The D in Apartment 23. Then they all have gymnastics or acrobatics, and that's kind of self-explanatory. Weapon mastery, primarily with firearms and knives. Vehicle driving, and by this I mean like high-speed chase style driving, so very defensive driving, as well as driving different types of vehicles like boats and planes. And then healing factors. So everyone has an incredible healing factor when it comes to injuries and illness. Healing from things like gunshots, flesh wounds, losing limbs, and shrugging off an unknown disease from like a mosquito in season 9, episode 4, Halloween on Spooner Street. So that's it for the crazy physiology, but now we can get into the fun part. So we do know that at some point the entire family gained superpowers, and this was in season 3, episode 21, Family Guy Viewer Mail. Number 1, where the show breaks the fourth wall a little bit by telling us they decided to take some of the viewer mail and produce 3 short stories. The first and third stories were obviously not going to be canon, and we thought the second one wouldn't be either, because in this episode, a toxic waste truck ends up crashing in the Griffin's yard, then Chris touches one of the barrels, and the toxic waste gets on the family. This inevitably gives them the following superpowers. Stewie, his head grows even larger and he gains telekinetic abilities. Chris, he can start fires by thought, so basically pyrokinesis. Peter can shapeshift into any person or object, and that's basic shapeshifting. Lois becomes super strong. Brian can move at incredible speed, traveling around the world almost instantaneously. And Meg gains the ability to make her fingernails grow or shrink on command. So at first they try and do the right thing, but inevitably the power goes to their heads and they wreak havoc across the town until Mayor West tries to use toxic waste to get powers as well to stop them, but he ends up just getting cancer. So like I said, you would think this would be a one-off episode, but then powers just keep popping up, and some of them definitely tie back into this specific incident. So let's go family member by family member and go over their superpowers. And we're going to start with Peter. So Peter is actually half of the Wonder Twins at some point, where we see he hasn't lost his ability to shapeshift. And we see that in season 4, episode 2, Fast Times at Buddy Junior High. In season 8, episode 16, April and Quahog, he has the ability to manipulate his farts. When he farts, then sucks it back into himself. And he also might be able to fly, or maybe has super strength that lets him jump extra high after doing a copious amount of drugs. And this is actually not the only time we see drugs give Peter superpowers. It's actually kind of crazy. Then in season 12, we see him use 2 new abilities. In episode 19, Meg Stinks, he gets his hand knocked off and regrows it, and then this hand actually generates an evil clone named Retep, and I think this is just an extension of his shape-shifting abilities, since his genetic code would be pretty unstable, but also he can just kind of regrow limbs. It's the same as changing a limb. But then in episode 20, he's Black. Peter, along with Cleveland, actually demonstrate the ability to change pigments, and the fact that Cleveland can do it too is kind of strange, but we sort of got an explanation in the Cleveland show, so maybe if this does well, we'll get into that video. He very briefly gets radioactive superpowers while fighting Homer Simpson in season 13, episode 1, The Simpsons Guy. And then he gets Deadpool powers going by Deadstool in season 16, episodes 11, Dog Bites Bear. And then his next drug-fueled superpower is from season 17, episode 19, Girl Interneted. We see him get so high that he literally travels through space and time. And this episode brings us very well into the next family member, being Meg. So Meg is actually a little bit of fun because her original power really sucked. But then in later seasons, we see she was just kind of a late bloomer, with her gaining 2 new superpowers. The first one, sort of on brand for her, is actually just being ugly/gross. Except in Meg's case, this actually gives her the ability to literally kill someone with her looks by melting them when they see her topless, and we saw this in season 12, episode 4, A Fistful of Meg. Then in season 19, episode 10, Fecal Matters, we find out that Meg also has super speed, and the best part is the rest of the family doesn't know which one of them has it. So from what we see, she's just kind of using it to mess with the family. But now the fun one is Peter and Meg actually share a superpower, potentially. We see that one of them or both of them has reality warping powers, with a couple of examples are Meg and Peter's GoldenEye prison break from Girl Interneted, and then Quagmire either shares this ability or was just using Meg's powers to train Meg in A Fistful of Meg in this old video game training scene. But then we can move on to Stewie. So Stewie has always had a genius level of intellect, and it also could have been exacerbated by his mind growing when he got his telekinesis. But this will enable him to use technology to do pretty much anything from time/multiverse travel to bringing his teddy bear to life, like we see in the most recent special for the 25th anniversary, Peter Pumpkin Eater. So the rest of the family are really interesting, as they can't really tie any of their powers back to the originals. So it is possible they actually lost their powers, or their powers have just changed over the years. But to start off with this side of the family, we're going to start off with Lois, and we actually see Lois demonstrate a power prior to Family Guy viewer mail number 1. See, in season 3, episode 16, A Very Special Family Guy Christmas, when she goes on what's essentially a berserker rage through the town, winding up getting pumped full of enough tranquilizer to put down a bull elephant. And this might actually be why she was the one who ended up with super strength, though she doesn't really seem to have that power anymore. But in season 19, episode 3, Boys and Squirrels, we see she has size manipulation powers when she makes Peter shrink by literally berating him. Though she actually implies that all women can do this, but she seems to be able to do it more quickly and way more effectively. She shrinks him down essentially to the size of a doll. And now we can move on to Brian. So Brian is interesting since through him we see that it is 100% possible to lose your superpowers through outside means. See, in season 3, episode 1, The Thin White Line, we see that Brian has a super sense of smell. And not just because he is a dog, his sense of smell gives him almost a Sherlock Holmes level of deduction just from smelling something really quickly. However, he actually ends up losing this power when he gets addicted to the drugs that he was looking for. And since we know he definitely does not have super speed anymore, he has to train to run a marathon in season 13, episode 2, The Book of Joe. Maybe he was just too lazy for too long and he actually lost his powers, which might actually explain why Chris Griffin hasn't demonstrated a single extra superpower since the original episode. Since Chris is just kind of by normality a sort of lazy person, he probably just lost the ability to control fire, or we've just never seen him use it. We actually really don't know. And then, there's obvious, like, Meg got replaced, and Chris has also been replaced somewhere in the show. But what do you guys think? Did all of that make sense? Did you know about all of the superpowers, or are there any that I might have missed? Please let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, guys, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you never miss another video from me. Like I said, I'd love to hit 1,000 subscribers before Christmas, and you guys can help me do that. But until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video.